It's time for the third part of our Battlebots 2022 preview. It's just me here today, but I'm here to talk all about my home region of the Western region. We're going to be hopping from Arizona to Colorado to Nevada to Washington to Texas to talk about 6 very interesting robots coming up for the 2022 Battlebots season. We have 1 rookie in this class and even a top 16 robot, so a little bit of each spectrum. So stay tuned. It's time for more Battlebots predictions.
Enough energy to get in the flip on Combot. We're going to go all the way. Oh my God! That's going to hurt. Grab the milk, Kenny.
Welcome to the Combot Collective.
Hello everybody and welcome to another episode here at the Combot Collective, bringing you everything you want to know about the 2022 Battlebots season. We have more Battlebots previews here for you as we discuss the Western region here today. We have 6 robots, which like I said at the top of the video, 1 coming from Arizona, Nevada, Colorado, and Texas. 2 coming from Washington, of course, 2 robots from Western Allied Robotics. We have a top 16 level robot to talk about here in Copperhead, who's undergoing some very interesting changes entering this 2022 season. And of course, a rookie with Banshee spurring off from the Team Malice group. A very wide array of Rubateers joining their ranks. And it's also exciting to see another flipper, but that's going to be talked about at the end of the video. We're going to be starting off with Copperhead here. And as always, I'm your host, Sterling Brown, aka Courier 300th, Battlebots subreddit moderator, runner of King of Draft. Haven't said all that in a little bit, figured I'd say it again. But yes, we won't waste too much time here. We're going to jump right into it, talking about Colorado's own Copperhead to kick off the video. And like I said, starting off here with the robot Battlebots ranked in the preseason number 18, a robot which sits at number 21 on TCC's overall rankings. It's Copperhead coming from Colorado. A robot which has been a long time coming entering this 2022 season. Of course, we first saw the original rendition of Copperhead, known as Poison Arrow, compete at Battlebots 2016, make the top 8 in its debut season with some crazy upset wins against robots like Son of Waiachi and Hypershock. And then that robot would go over to China at ClashBots and have a pretty spectacular run there, competing somewhere, I want to say around 14 times, like 10 to 14 times. So it was certainly double digits in what was a very crazy, unique event. I can't speak too much about the production of it, but it was definitely a unique event. Fortunately, that was the last time we'd see Poison Arrow for certain reasons, or at that event, Spicy Newt. But in Battlebots 2019, they would come right back with a new version of the robot after missing the 2018 season, and it would be called Copperhead. Big, chunky 2-wheel drive system with that vicious spinning drum. Didn't have the most exciting 2019 season. And then in 2020, the last year which Zachary Goff captained the robot, it would have an excellent season. It went 3-0 in the regular season, I believe, kicking it off with an amazing victory against Gigabyte. One where it absolutely de-shelled the vicious full-body spinner. And then in the playoffs, where it was, I believe, ranked number 4, number 3 even, it was defeated in the first round by Mammoth, one of the bottom seeds of what was an absolutely massive upset, seeing Mammoth take out Copperhead. And it was a very unique fight. Some people do believe Copperhead won that fight. I'm not in that camp. And then in 2021, the one we really need to be focusing on here, this robot would go 2-0 in the regular season, got the shortened season, with victories over Lockjaw in what was a very exciting main event match, and then a victory over Fusion in an impressive knockout to secure another high seeding in the 2021 playoffs this time around. And this time, Copperhead would make it at least one round further, getting past Lucky in the first round, what was a Battlebots YouTube exclusive only matchup. And then in the second round would be shut down by Witch Doctor by knockout. Really unfortunate they had their season cut short, but it did make it at least one round further. Forgot to mention 2021, Robert Cowan, the captain of Copperhead. But this year, it's someone completely different, as they're not going through their third captain 3 years here, being led by Luke Quintal, a NHRL and Colorado scene regular, with robots such as Rumham and Kitten Mittens, which aren't really Luke's usual style of robots, but still very destructive robots. So he is kind of working in that regard. He's going to be a good captain for the team, though. He has this experience needed, I do believe. But the team also features some other familiar faces if you do watch NHRL, and other familiar faces from the state of Colorado, of course, such as Chris DeSico, NHRL commentator, Pete Covert, Chad New, NHRL competitors, and then, of course, the incredibly untrustworthy Clyde Magnuson. I really don't know if that's the right person you need in the pits for an event like this. He seems up to no good. Battlebots is a very professional event. I question having him, but it's all good. Copperhead itself has mildly rebranded to a more rustic, more of a natural look, which I'm a fan of. But talking about the machine itself, it is one of the sport's most durable robots. A fun fact I found out, the machine has been using the same 2 frames since it debuted in 2019. But upgrades, we don't really know about too much of them. We knew, though, that they've been made internally, but we don't know really too much about the details of this machine. Outside the fact that it does boast some brand new, what we have here, custom made wheels this season, made out of polyethylene. Something fascinating, something to make their wheels a bit more durable. I never really thought that was an issue for Copperhead, but it seems like they're going to be a bit sturdier this year. Always nice to see. In terms of the robot, though, career 630 winning average, a surprisingly low 310 knockout average. I thought it would be much higher. Copperhead, of course, probably the second most vicious drum bot in Battlebots outside of a machine like Minotaur. You know, we really haven't seen this robot have a bad season yet, as Poison Arrow made top 16, went all the way to the Final Four at Clash Bots in the couple years after that. Top 24 at Battlebots 2019, top 32 at Battlebots 2020, top 16 at Battlebots 2021. They really have yet to hit that high that they had in Battlebots 2016, but I do think they are, of course, going to be a contender this year, but I think this is probably going to be the first year where they have a really serious schedule. I mean, on paper, Fusion and Lockjaw, that looks pretty deadly, but you know, both those robots really didn't end up living to the hype this year. We know they both will be back, so we'll have to see how they go, but it's just going to be a tough schedule this year, of course. Like I have on my paper right here, 2-2 season prediction. I think it's going to definitely have some big wins. I think we may finally get to see the Minotaur versus Copperhead matchup that a lot of fans have been clamoring for. I think Minotaur does win that matchup, though. Those wheels are exposed, and it seems like Copperhead does come up to its own, or I should say succumb to its own smaller issues every season. Eventually, you know, got knocked out by Witch Doctor and Goodbye in the past. Got kind of clowned on by Mammoth in 2020. Definitely some unfortunate losses. Copperhead has been just sort of an upper middle card robot so far in its career, but it is still a very impressive robot and one you should watch out for. Colorado's Deadly Machine here, probably the most impressive robot in this entire list, but not the only top 16 robot, as we are about to go a little bit more to the west with Nevada. Let's talk about the hometown hero with Jackpot. So here we go. The robot, fittingly enough, ranked number 21 by Battlebots. Ranked number 51 at the Combot Collective, 30-point difference there. This robot was originally in the top 10 rankings for the Combot Collective, entering Battlebots Champions, but the losses to Malice at Remar's All-Stars and the loss to Riptide at Vengeance of Vegas would knock it 40 spots down. That's what happens when you get knocked out twice. It's a huge peg on your win-loss record. Very disappointing to see it, but they're still in that upper half, which is good for them. I mean, overall, average year, even though they didn't make the top 16, we have 3-3 on their history right here. They had 3 straight wins to kick it off, of course, against robots like Tombstone and Malice. Deadlift was in there too. Then it would end up taking 3 losses to finish the year. Losses to the like of Blip and Malice, and a bit of a revenge kill for them. So a lot of expectations for a team this year. And talking about the team, we have Jeff Waters returning to Captain Jackpot for the robot's career 3rd season. And of course joined the crew once again this year with his Minibot Ace, a role which played a big factor in that first deadlift matchup Jackpot had during the 2021 season. Jason Woods, no tracer this year. He's just going to be joining Team Jackpot Las Vegas Combat Robotics once again this year with that little lifting Minibot. And speaking of lifters, Jackpot's biggest addition, as we now talk about the robot a little bit here, Jackpot is going to be returning with a set of brand new lifting arms. If you saw the Combot Collective's first applicant rundown, we talked about this robot a little bit during it because this came out around April, around the time the 2021 Battlebots season was wrapping up on TV. A lot of big changes here that we're going to be talking about. We don't know what's actually making the cut, but one thing that did make the cut from those CADs was those lifters. We see them in the main robot picture that we have right here, we got so much stuff to point at now. It drives me insane. So yeah, those big addition right here. This is the biggest addition in the robots. Those two big brand new lifters, which, like I said, go over the entire robot, doubling as a Shreemech of sorts, because Shreemechs have not been Jackpot's forte in the past. Just look at the Riptide fight. Look at the Blip fight. Look at a lot of 2020 fights, especially the Deadlift 2020 fight. The robot hasn't had the best of luck with getting back on its base. It's ended up getting blacked out quite a few times, unfortunately, because of that. So hopefully a big chunky lifter setup like that will work. But let's go into the conceptual here, talking about what appeared in those CADs. On top of the Diamond and Heartbreaker vertical spinners, which we do know are returning, in those CADs, we saw a weapon system which looked like a roulette wheel double disc, and it was built very similarly to a robot like 259 from Robot Wars or Combot, of course, in Battlebots. If this weapon actually made the cut, it would be amazing to see. I mean, right here, it looks absolutely stunning. But we'll just have to see. And speaking of this weapon, it also factors into an anti-huge configuration, which was also posted along with these CADs. And this configuration pretty much got rid of any front wedge on Jackpot. I guess it's also an anti-Star Child configuration now, if you think about it. It really has a lot more application. Like I said, Jackpot, no wedge on the front, big stilts. If you saw Heavy Metal Noise back in the days of Battlebots like 4.0, 5.0, you get this concept. But yes, big front, lifted up, kind of like Nightmare as well. That's another similar reference, a bit more familiar. And then you got that big spinning disc on the front, spins upwards. This would be a great set to take out a robot like Huge or Star Child. Get up there, get to some of those juicy bits that some robots can't reach. But now let's get back down to Earth to what we do know is going to be on the robot. Hopefully we do see those things though. But like I said, here's what we do know. Of course, this is a full rebuild of the robot. This robot seems to just glow up more and more every season. It was just a bot on a budget in 2020 where it had its great 3-0 run. Came back as a bit more of an expensive robot, a little bit more of a contender, but still a bit boxy for 2021. And then here, 2022, this looks like a full-on, themed and styled out robot. One thing I gotta bring up for team captain Jeff Waters and the rest of the crew here, I brought this up last season as well, at least for some of the team. We do know that some people, like Chimera's Jason Woods, who we brought up a couple moments ago. For most of this team, they live in Las Vegas, and they're going to get to sleep in their own beds and, stay with their own houses and not have to be in that big-ass builder hotel like a lot of these teams are, especially some of these teams that are, international or from the East Coast that are really going out of their way for this event. This is a bit different from them. You got to think about time zone change, which, of course, after the first week, they're adjusted by. But there's a lot of smaller X factors and intangibles that always play into this that I think really do help out Jackpot here. Of course, this is Las Vegas. They're literally, just, I'm not going to say down the road because I don't know exactly where they live, but, can't be more than a 20-minute drive from this venue, depending on traffic. That's a big factor you gotta play into these things. But of course, there's not much rest in Battlebots, so who actually knows? Talking about the robot, though, I am excited to see it, but I do question the new build and the size of this lifter. I feel like if that lifter gets bent up or torn apart by, like a good full-body spinner like Captain Shredder or Gigabyte, or maybe even a really powerful horizontal spinner like Triton, who I really can't wait to talk about. Full rebuilds are kind of sketchy. Just look at Lockjaw's full rebuild last year. It did horrible, 0-4. It was really disappointing to see, and sometimes full rebuilds just don't work out. Starting from scratch, even if the concept's similar, it ends up going poorly. This is going to be Jackpot's first 3-fight regular season, and I question how well it's going to do. Of course, it's never done worse than 2-0 in its first 2 fights of the regular season, so maybe this is a little bit bold, but I am going to say 1-3, especially if a lot of these new conceptual weapon things like the anti-huge, like the roulette wheel are factored in. A lot of things might not go right with this system, and like I said, I'm not really sold on this lifter yet. If this lifter does work, maybe we'll see another, big DILL style, Terror Top style robot, and maybe this will become a bit of a new meta change for robot combat. This is definitely the third one we've seen already in these Battlebots previews. So definitely a bit of a trend there, but I'm going to say 1-3 for Jeff Waters, Jason Woods, and the rest of the Las Vegas crew. TCC rank 51 may go down a little bit next year if they don't have a good year. But I am surprised they weren't like a full-time robot for Remar's All-Stars in Nevada. I feel like they could have done better in that bracket. Maybe if they were given Tombstone again. Of course, Tombstone, a big robot, which they beat in 2021. Probably could have beat it again there. Maybe put it against Hypershock in 2022. I would love to see that. But I digress. Let's move on forward here to our third robot as we now jump from Nevada up a bit north, going to Washington. Now, Copperhead and Jackpot, very impressive robots, but only one robot on this list has won an event in the last calendar year, going back to 2021 at Robot Ruckus in November. It's time to talk about Big DILL in Washington, better known almost on the live events as Banana Runt, rocking the yellow. Of course, Big DILL not ranked with Battlebots. It was an alternate last year and only went 0-3 at Battlebots Champions in Vengeance in Vegas. Certainly not the best year for it compared to 2020. So yes, not ranked in Battlebots unfortunately, but for the Combot Collective, ranked number 97. Was ranked very high entering Battlebots Champions. In fact, all the way up at number 14, almost breaking into our TCC 10. But after its undefeated at Run on Robot Ruckus 2021, it was all losses from there. Full combat losses at that. Robot Ruckus was a sportsman event, and a couple of these were by knockout. This robot would lose to Bloodsport, Blip, and Overhaul, of course, that legendary chair fight at Battlebots. Of course, the Battlebots is just a whole different beast. You know, you can pick up those easy, simple wins at the sportsman events. You know, your Robot Ruckuses, your South Florida Fairs, your Roboticas, your Robots Lives, your Mechatrons. But when you get to the heavyweight full combat arena, you know, it's a whole different beast. So you gotta be prepared for it, but can't say the team isn't prepared. We have Emmanuel Carrillo entering Big DILL for his third year here. Emmanuel Carrillo, a fantastic story. Talking about the pit crew, though, this is quite a pit crew at that. We have Russ Barrow also present on this team, a guy who I watched quite a bit in person back when I was a child at the Swark events back at Mike's Hobby Shop back in the day. He's in charge of, or presumably in charge of, one of Big DILL's new mini bots, which looks like a 12-pound version, maybe a 30-pound, but I don't think that much weight is going to be put on a mini bot. Likely a 12-pound version of the legendary Antweight Dark Pounder. Like I said, a robot which I watched a ton growing up as a kid. Dark Pounder was a fantastic robot back in the day, and seeing this 12-pound version of it, we saw it in one of the entry shots it had, and seeing a 12-pound version of Dark Pounder, that just makes me excited. I really hope we can see that thing do some damage in the arena, maybe raise some eyebrows, because I know they were trying to apply with a heavyweight one year. Getting Team Dark Forces in here, but I'm getting stuck on that, getting nostalgic. Speaking of mini-bots, of course, Big DILL's original mini-bot, a role which originally belonged to Warhawk, named War Squawk back in the day, now better known as Spicy Meatball, will still be present this season also. It was in the team photo. It will likely still be the go-to mini-bot, because damaging mini-bots are always still a little bit sketchy. You don't really know what to expect, you know. Those smaller weapons, even on a robot like the Dark Force family, like the Dark Pounder family, they're always deadly robots. When a 12-pounder hits a 250-pounder, you can only expect so much. The biggest pit crew get for this year, though, for Big DILL, and easily one of the biggest pit crew gets for any team this year, has to be Ellis Ware from the UK joining Team Big DILL for this year. I should say Team Food Fight. I apologize. Ellis Ware is a multi-time champion in the smaller weight classes and a captain of multiple heavyweights such as Pulsar, Sandstorm, and Magnetar. Pulsar and Magnetar, of course, two robots which have made Robot Wars Grand Finals in the past. We've seen Magnetar make some really big impacts at Extreme Robots back in the day, and Sandstorm, which has also competed on Extreme Robots with lesser success. Best known for its time at This Is Spotting Robots, where it made the top 16, was a fan favorite at that event. So this is a very unique, very diverse and exciting pit crew here with Emmanuel, Russ, Ellis, and the rest of this team. Great people on this crew. We saw them not enough last year, quite frankly. But now let's get to Big DILL itself. This robot's going to hopefully not be in a pickle this year, like I said. Alternate as of right now, but hopefully with some of the dropouts we've heard of. We know Doom had a dropout. We know that Double Tap's having a sketchy situation recently seen on Reddit. We'll have to see what happens, but I think Big DILL will get in. So talking about the robot here, the lifter will be much improved this season, much thanks to the brand new gearbox, as something we already seen in action at 2021's Robot Ruckus. This was a change made between Battlebots and Robot Ruckus in that small window of time, and it was quite a good change. Of course, Big DILL 4-0 at that event, so you gotta imagine Big DILL's schedule last year happening in reverse. All those losses happened before the wins at the end of the year, which does give me some confidence in Big DILL. Another thing that gives me confidence in Big DILL, just like free shipping, this machine is jumping on the vertical spinner wagon, adopting a lifter and spinner hybrid setup just like Terratops's, but with the weapon sticking much more outward. Like I said in that prior video when we were talking about Long Beach's Terratops, I was worried about how shallow that weapon was inward. Not a problem. That thing is sticking way out here with Big DILL. In fact, in some of the configurations, the wedgelet configuration, by the way, they now have a wedgelet configuration, something they didn't have in the past. It looks super sleek seeing that weapon stick out like that. Big DILL looks ready to go this year. I'm not even kidding. But here we go, one more change right here. A very small change, but still feel like it's worth noting. Top of those little forklets on the top of Big Dill's plow. You can kind of see it in the picture right here. Now UHMW. I really don't know the significance of this change. Maybe those things got bent in a fight last year that cost Big Dill. We'll have to see how it plays out. The team knows what they're doing. Emmanuel Carrillo, very intelligent driver, an awesome captain. Like I said, an amazing story. Hopefully we'll get to see it in the regular season. I'm predicting a 2-2 year for Big Dill. I like that pickle blade. I think it's going to do some damage. I think it's really going to turn some heads. It's probably going to get a fairly easy schedule. I mean, this robot didn't appear at main season World Championship Battlebots at all last year. Only competing at Battlebots Champions of Vegas. Had a rough year, but I am glad to see them back because I was not forecasting this after the rough 0-3 year. But that just shows, hey, winning those outside events like Robot Ruckus, it plays in Battlebots is factoring still a little bit. You can qualify for Battlebots with some of these outside events. I certainly love to see it. We need you, Eruption, to apply to Battlebots. You've won enough events. Please come over here. I'm begging you. But talking about Big Dill here. Western Allied Robotics, of course. What an amazing crew. Warhawk, Mad Catter, Big Dill. And the robot we're going to be talking about here in just a second, a robot which has had more TV time than Big Dill, but certainly not has had the same level of success when you factor in live events and everything. We now go from Emmanuel Carrillo to Kevin Milcheski. Let's talk about the Nippy Claw Viper. Now here we go. I love this robot, but I don't know if I'm going to be putting it on my King of Draft fantasy team anymore. I had it on the last 2 seasons, and every time I put it on mid-season after it gets a round 1 win, it never wins again. Breaks my heart. Let's talk about Claw Viper coming from Washington, just like Big Dill. This is, of course, part of the big dynasty of Western Allied Robotics, a great group of robots, of course. Like we said just now, at that Big Dill bit, Mad Catter and Warhawk, 2 robots that are also in this lineage. We've seen these robots have success in the U.S., of course, you know, multiple top 32 appearances for Mad Catter. Warhawk made it to the top 16 in 2018. Big Dill winning Robot Ruckus in 2021. And even internationally, you know, Bad Kitty, aka Mad Catter, was a mainstay robot in the King of Bots era. But now we have Claw Viper not really keeping up with the rest of the crew, at least not just yet. This machine debuted at Robot Ruckus 2019 as Siegebreaker, which is the original version of Claw Viper, a 30-pound robot, which is well known in the featherweight class. Became the heavyweight Siegebreaker, like I said, at Robot Ruckus 2019. Did okay, and then it would appear at Battlebots 2020, qualifying in after a pretty decent performance at Robot Ruckus, and it would really become, you know, the speed demon of robot combat, especially in the heavyweight class. Fastest robot in the sport right now, easily, with a top speed of 20 miles an hour. Top of that, robot this year also features an extra 250 pounds of magnetic downforce, but let's not get too ahead of ourselves. This team is ranked number 68 with the robot on the TCC overall rankings. Claw Viper itself not ranked at all in the Battlebots preseason rankings, but that's just because they haven't had a good year so far. They went 2-3 at Battlebots in the year prior, only getting wins against the likes of Pardon My French, who barely worked most of the season, and Defender, who was a playoff level robot. So that's a pretty big win for them. Probably their biggest win yet, I would say. But despite all that, 2-3 anyway. Losses coming to Black Dragon, Bloodsport, and Mad Catter. Very game opponents, you know, great machines to lose to, but it just doesn't end up working out for them most of the time in the end of the day. Sometimes it's too fast for its own good. It's not exactly the best controlled robot, as much as I am a fan of Team Multiversal and Kevin Milcheski. As I was saying, the captain of Claw Viper here, appearing for its 3rd Battlebots season. But back to the robot here, like I said, fastest heavyweight in the sport at 20 miles per hour with the 250 pounds of magnetic downforce. It's going to be hard to flip this robot or get it off the ground. They're going to have to be able to control it, though. The team has kept updates quiet like we were expecting. They usually are one of the least active teams on social media. But what we do know is that the team have ditched the UHMW lifter and claws like we saw in 2021, along with that 4-bar clamp mechanism, which I certainly had a lot of hope for, but really just didn't work out at all. So we're going back to the traditional lifter and steel clamp like we saw at Battlebots Champions. It got victories against Defender, but despite all that, they just need to get that control back in base. They really haven't been the most, you know, level and steady robot. I love Claw Viper, but, you know, when they get to that point where they're starting to take damage, they're starting to have a bit more struggle, it becomes a rough situation. But there is promise. Bloodsport versus Claw Viper last year was an amazing fight. One of my 5 favorite fights of the entire season. We almost saw Bloodsport go out of the arena, but after Claw Viper loses that claw, it doesn't matter how much of a tanky brick this robot is. It really does remind me of like a Storm 2, that core of the robot without the lifting system, because it can just ram and slam and ram and slam and do some serious damage that way. Bloodsport certainly had a bad time. That's just with the horizontal spinners. Vertical spinners always do big time damage to this robot and usually bully it and put it down pretty easily. Just look at Mad Hatter and Black Dragon last year. Black Dragon, in fact, 2 career wins over Claw Viper here now. So factoring in all that, I gotta say 1 and 3. I mean, I just don't think they're going to figure it out, at least for one more season. I would love to be wrong. I hope Kevin Molcheski has done the driving practice needed to go far this season. But from what we've seen in 2020 and 2021, they'll get a fairly okay, unproven robot in round 1. Hijinks debuting in 2020, easy win there. Part of my French debuting in 2021, easy win there. So maybe they'll go up against something like a Horizon or a Double Tap in the first round, get a W there, but they got to make it through a 4-fight schedule. Just like Jackpot and just like Big DILL, this is going to be the first time this robot has to run the 4-fight gauntlet. Can the robot survive 4 fights? It's usually pedal to the metal, ramming itself again and again and again in all these matchups. Did make it through 5 fights last season, but that's with a bit of a gap between Battlebots and Champions. I guess we're just going to have to see. We know that they are going to be well-staffed, well-prepared. Kevin Molcheski usually gets that robot looking to 100% before every fight, once again for each match. TCC ranked number 68 last season. Did have one promising moment. I guess it's worth noting. It did appear at Robot Ruckus in 2021 and did so good in its first fight against Slammo. Probably one of the best live event fights this year. Definitely go out of your way to watch that fight if you get the chance. Did really good against Slammo, but ultimately we have to pull out of the event because it was just too damaged for the arena. It was ramming into the arena, popping out wall bits, pulling up the floor. I believe they had to stop the fight maybe once or twice during that match. It was just too powerful. The thing's absolutely insane, and that arena was way too small and way too rickety for a machine like that. I mean, 20 miles per hour makes the robot a traction no matter what robot it fights, just because you love seeing it zip around the arena, go full force, but we'll have to see how it goes. I already said it. 1 and 3 for me. I hope I'm wrong, because this robot is playoff level, I believe, especially in a different rule set. But here, I don't think so. We'll see. But now, here we go. Let's talk about the home stay. Of course, we got the TCU helmet here. I got the Rangers cap on, but sadly, this is the only robot from Texas this year. We had 3 last year. We were eating so good, but we're back to square one. Battlebots doesn't really ever throw us a bone with these entries. California and New York always get a few, but I digress. We only got Switchback here this year, and this was what I was kind of forecasting after the unfortunate, very unfortunate year that poor Sub-Zero had. I kind of had a bad feeling that we were not going to get, or at least they might not just not apply, because they are with Team Lockjaw this year, Mutant Robots. But I digress. Sub-Zero had a bad year. Dragon Slayer had a bad year, and Switchback didn't have the worst year. It went 2 and 3 in its debut year as a very conceptual robot, very much shades of Horizon, but vertically, with the big overhead arm and the interchangeable drum teeth. And like I said, it will end up getting wins over Slammo and top 32 member Lucky at Battlebots Champions, one of the bigger upsets at Battlebots Champions. But ultimately, it did disappoint with a lot of hype and fascination behind it. I don't think the expectations were too high for a conceptual robot, but it really didn't play out well. Not ranked at all with Battlebots in its preseason rankings, of course, like a lot of robots in this video. The Combot Collective has it ranked number 99, one of the last robots. In fact, the very last robot before you hit the triple-digit cusp. So at least it's avoiding that, but it certainly isn't avoiding being in the bottom half of our TCC overall ranking list. Moving forward here, we got a lot of interesting things to talk about here with Switchback. Big things changing, but first, captain once again here by Rev Robotics founder and CEO Greg Needell. He is a longtime FRC coach and competitor. He's done pretty much everything you can in the FRC. And in fact, combined, when you factor in the rest of this team here, it's all FRC veterans, and the team collectively has over 100 years of FRC experience as a pit crew. But don't think this means that these guys aren't fully experienced in battle robot combat outside of that one season of Battlebots, because the team has picked up a new member for the pit crew this year in 2022. A bit more robot combat experience under their plate with the acquisition of former Team WPI / Team Robot member James Negan, now a part of their ranks. It's always good to have some veteran presence, a bit of veteran experience there. Of course, Team WPI, Team Robot, very much a winning program. Hopefully it works out well for them. But here we go. Let's talk about this new Switchback, labeled Switchback version 2. And this is definitely a year of big overhauls. We've already talked about some crazy overhauls with robots like free shipping, Kraken, Big DILL, so on and so on. A lot of big changes with robots this year. But perhaps one of the bigger overhauls we've seen this year is with Switchback, a 100% redesign here, and a very, very impressive one at that. I said in a Reddit comment like months ago when this machine was first revealed, very much reminds me of like old school caving, excavating machinery. We see that here. This looks like a big coal mining machine. I absolutely love this robot. They have ditched the multi-tooth interchangeable disc for a classic egg beater spinner. We've seen egg beater weapons do very well in heavyweight combat as of late. Of course, Railgun Max 2019, Black Dragon in 2020, Riptide in 2021. Maybe Switchback and break into that little group right there, but that's not the only weapon, of course. Like I said, we've talked a lot about robots switching to the lifter vertical spinner hybrid, trying to gain those control points along with those damage points, and Switchback no different. It is now a bulky vertical spinner lifter hybrid with a set of lifting tusks on the front, but this version a lot more similar to Whiplash than the aforementioned Big DILL and Jackpot. So that's sort of basically what we know about the robot. Of course, with a robot like this, there's a lot, and I mean a lot of changes internally that we just don't know as of yet. Last year, Switchback was pretty much 99% custom-made robot, and I expect much of the same here. I wouldn't say 99%, but a lot of the robot was custom-made, and I expect that here. Greg Needell has said that there is not one recycled part from Switchback 1 on this new machine, so they're going to be trying out some new tech, probably some new parts, of course, maybe new wheels, maybe new gearboxes, motors, whatever you may need to change, batteries. Because there was certainly promise with Switchback last year. Maybe even made the top 32 if they managed to survive against Gruff and pick up enough damage points. But they didn't have the stream mech. It looks like they might be able to self-right this year. I do worry a little bit about the robot getting caught on its side maybe. Or maybe on its top. It doesn't look like it's invertible, so that weapon, or I should say that lifting arm goes down. They could be in some serious trouble, but the robot's an absolute chonker. It looks totally beautiful, and I'm super excited for these guys to represent the Lone Star State this year. Home area of Dallas-Fort Worth. I always love it, but with that, I'm going to predict a 2-2 year. Maybe a little bit of hometown bias, but I really do have high hopes for Rev Robotics, Greg Needell, and Switchback and the rest of their crew. But it could easily go 1-3 if this robot isn't proven and it does struggle. This will be like a lot of robots here, their first time in a 4-fight season. But it seems like they are a very well-prepared team. They came with a ton of Switchbacks last year for the rookie season, which is always something very good to see with a rookie team. Kind of like at the Terratops level of prepared. So I'm sure they have brought multiple Switchbacks once again and what have you. Hopefully we can see them score some KOs. Maybe get some out of the arenas with the new lifter. Or at least get robots onto the upper deck. We'll have to see how it plays out. I'm totally cheering for them, though. I gotta rep the Lone Star State. I love it so much. Go Switchback. Here we go. One more robot left. And finally, going from Texas back west a little bit more, one more time before we go to the north and the east. We're here at Arizona, the desert state, with our only rookie here in this video. Not as many Western robots this year, unfortunately. Yeti not here this year, along with a couple other robots, but I digress. Of course, this robot not ranked. It's time to talk about Banshee, and of course, this new robot is not ranked with the Combot Collective or Battlebots, being a brand new robot to the heavyweight division. This machine comes from David Small from Team Small Robotics, a former pit crew member of Team Malice for its last 2 seasons, someone very close to the captain, Bunny Soriol. But this guy is best known for some of his smaller flippers and other robots, like Son of Cram, who we just saw at the NHRL Finals recently, but also his smaller flippers such as Highlander or Kelpie, who we've also seen on NHRL streams, Kelpie I should say. Those 2 flippers there, the inspiration to a robot like Banshee, the only new heavyweight flipper in the Battlebots field this year. Talking about the roster though, of course, captained by David Small, the team is also quite loaded in experience and talent. Members from Illinois and Arizona are present on the team, but we also have coming from the UK, much like Alice Ware, Gus Collier, who has a history with Battlebots and working with both the Nelly to Ellie Bot team for a couple of seasons, and part of my French last season during the 2021 championship. He wasn't able to be present due to COVID restriction issues, and of course, a lot of those European teams weren't able to come. Left the team in a bit of a rut, but they did manage to work it out here at the end. But now he gets to finally be a Battlebots for 2022. I'm super happy for him. But we also have, more interesting to me, Kevin Lilly, who returns to the Battlebots for the first time since 2002, this time as a pit crew member. He was originally a captain for a robot named Widowmaker back in 2002. Of course, like we talked back in one of our Robo Games previews, Widowmaker competed from the early 2000s all the way to 2014, where he then switched out for his more recent, now better known robot Tastes Like Burning, who we're hopefully going to see at Robo Games 2023. But back to Banshee, we really don't know too much about the robot yet, other than the fact it is a brand new heavyweight flipper which boasts 18,000 pounds of flipping force via a custom made system specifically for Banshee here, which fires at 1500 psi. And we also have some configurations for Banshee. They have the front fork setup, which we've seen in team photos and we've seen in a lot of footage for Banshee so far. But we have seen on their social media, they also have a big, chunky, green, anti-horizontal wedge setup. Of course, you got to have one of those when you take on some of the deadly spinners like Gigabyte and Triton in this world of BattleBots. Even Ribot, if they bust out the undercutter. But I mean, the robot looks solid, it looks proven, looks like it's very sturdy. David Small, a very proven roboteer, and he's got a great group of people. Of course, like I already mentioned, Gus Collier and Kevin Lilly, great people there. And the rest of his crew as well, the lady on the team, a bit of a mascot for them, dressing up like the Banshee, but of course she also has robot combat experience. All these people do. It's a very experienced group of people. But sometimes it doesn't always translate to the arena with the new robots. You got teething phases. You got to work out through the ruts and the kinks. This robot not as conceptually bold as something like Horizon and Double Tap, who we talked about in prior videos, but you still got to work things out. I'm not sure if Banshee's a 4-bar flipper or a classic flipper. I think it might be a 4-bar given the shape of the robot. But the machine itself does give me huge shades of like Grim Reaper from back in the Robot Wars Series 7 days, a robot which had a lot of success in Robot Wars. Not so much in BattleBots, but definitely in Robot Wars, making it to a series semifinal. Kind of that same energy with the ghoulish vibe. Of course, we have the Banshee lady on the crew, but we also have David Small rocking the sword with the armor plates. That's pretty sick. I hope it does good because I love my flippers. Of course, shouts to Bronco. We want you back, baby. And I love Sub-Zero, of course. I love Lucky. I'm definitely going to be pulling for Banshee in a lot of these fights. It's probably not going to have the toughest schedule, so I'm going to say 2-2. I know I've been giving a lot of robots 2-2, but that just really shows how good the field is this year. It's a very even, very steady, a very respectable field of robots. Before this rookie machine, you know, there's definitely going to be some early round issues. Round 1 and 2 for all these BattleBots seasons, we usually see robots just die out on the field. You got to deal with the early round gremlins when you mess with a machine that you can't really test anywhere out. Of course, these 250-pound robots, hard to test. You got to be very safe with them. Even with a flipper like Banshee, you know, what the heck are you going to flip that you can do safely? You got to get far away from that machine. But with that, you know, of course, very experienced, very prepared team. High hopes for this machine. I think it has a high ceiling here with the multiple flipper configurations with the plow and the forks. I don't know if they're going to be bringing multiple Banshees. I'm sure they at least have 2 Banshees in preparation for this event. But I could see them doing well. Maybe if not here, you know, maybe at BattleBots Champions when you have some worn down teams, Team Banshee, Team Small Robots still out here, you know, with a sturdy robot. I'm sure, like I said, they came with spares. So I can see them doing well at BattleBots Champions, but not getting too ahead of ourselves here for the regular season of BattleBots. I'm going to say 2-2 to close it off here. I think this is definitely going to be one of the better rookies we see at BattleBots this season, and I think we'll see them come back for 2023. Maybe watch out for these guys to be Rookie of the Year. We're just going to have to see. But there we go. Like I always say, 6 bots up, 6 bots down here at the Combot Collective. A little bit more brisk than our last video. While I was editing it, I was like, ooh. This is a long one. This is like fucking NorCal the movie over here. So hopefully this one was a bit more digestible. I tried to be a little bit more brisk with them while still hitting all the key talking points. Of course, a lot of very interesting robots here. We just talked about the sole rookie Banshee. From my home state of Texas, Switchback, Washington, and Western Allied Robotics' Claw Viper and Big DILL. And then, of course, the top 16 level robots, the 2 robots who you really got to watch out for this year, Claw Viper and Jackpot. I want to make it back to the Sweet 16 this year. Maybe even pick up a Golden Bolt if that's the constellation they have to take, but they just got to prove it. Both these robots, all-star level. Jackpot, almost an all-star in itself. Maybe we'll see a new robot become an all-star level candidate. Maybe someone like Banshee. Maybe someone like Big DILL. You know, Big DILL had some success last year. We're just going to have to see. We're almost halfway through the preview series now, but we still got a lot of robots to talk about. I'm super excited for that, and I'm super excited for the new year. BattleBots coming along. Big changes to the Combot Collective. Maybe even some other new exciting news announcements that I am holding tight right now, but I cannot wait to reveal to you guys. But I'm tired. I got food coming. I am your host as always, Sterling Brown. You can find me on Instagram at SterlingTXTG. But as for the Combot Collective, you can find us on Discord in our server. You can find that in the description below. That's where all of our video news goes out first. We're trying to make that a bit more of an active community. We have Roboteers there from Battlebots and from the UK. So some people there chatting about it, talking about robots. Bit of talk about the NHRL finals in there right now. You should check it out. Two of our guys in there are on NHRL finals teams, so there has been a bit of buzz. We also have our Instagram and Facebook. You can also find those in the description below. And of course, here on YouTube, please give this video a like and a comment if you enjoyed it. Tell us your thoughts about the Western Region robots, machines like Big DILL, Claw Viper, Copperhead, Switchback, the rookie Banshee. And of course, subscribe to the channel and ring that bell icon if you love what you're seeing here. We got 5 more of these Battlebots previews to get out, hopefully before January 5th. I'm trying to push them out here as hard as I can. And of course, come January 5th and that point onward, Battlebots reviews and previews. They're going to be coming out fast and furious. And hopefully some more live streams. I got these bot kits I've been wanting to put together. Hopefully I'll finally get around to doing that. We'll just have to see. I want to do some streams for that. But I'm rambling now. Let's get you out of here. I am your host, as always, Sterling Brown here at the Combot Collective, and I will see you next time.
This was the Combot Collective. Find us on Instagram and Discord.